Most people are trained to think about Social Security the wrong way. They stare at one number, they look at the check at 62, then they look at the check at 67, then they look at the check at 70. And the moment they see that age 70 produces the biggest monthly benefit, the case seems closed. The largest check must be the smartest decision. That is how the financial world sells the story. Wait longer, delay longer, be disciplined, be patient, take the bigger number. I have spent a lifetime watching people get hypnotized by bigger numbers while missing the better deal. And when it comes to Social Security, that mistake is everywhere. Because the real question is not, how do I squeeze the biggest monthly check out of Washington? The real question is, how do I get the most intelligent lifetime outcome for the household I actually have, the body I actually live in, the cash flow I actually need, and the future that is actually in front of me? Those are not the same question. And once you understand that, you stop treating 62 like a sign of weakness, and you start seeing it for what it can be in the right case. A strategic move roughly 2 out of 3 Americans claim before full retirement age. The financial media likes to talk about that as if millions of people are just confused, impatient, or financially illiterate. I do not buy that story. Some of those people are making poor decisions, but many of them are not making mistakes at all. Many of them are responding to realities that spreadsheets love to smooth over and human life never does. The spreadsheet says delay. The real world says maybe, and that maybe is where intelligent retirement planning begins. For anyone born in 1960 or later, full retirement age is 67. Claiming at 62 cuts the benefit by roughly 30%. Waiting until 70 lifts it to about 124% of the full retirement age amount on the surface. That sounds decisive. If your full retirement age benefit is $4,000 a month, you might see about $2,800 at 62 and close to $5,200 at 70. That spread is huge. It looks obvious. But obvious is one of the most expensive words in finance because that bigger check only wins under a certain set of conditions. It assumes you live long enough to enjoy it. It assumes you do not need the money earlier. It assumes your spouse is not blocked from collecting because you have not filed. It assumes your health is stable. It assumes your job is still tolerable. It assumes your household cash flow can carry the weight. It assumes your other assets are better spent first. It assumes timing does not have a cost. And when a decision rests on that many assumptions, I stop calling it wisdom and start calling it a bet. That is the master line for this entire subject. Claiming Social Security is not a morality test. It is not a contest to see who can delay the longest. It is a cash flow timing decision under uncertainty. That is all it is. And timing decisions under uncertainty are exactly the kind of decisions you do not solve with slogans. You solve them with mechanisms. The first mechanism is what I call the household unlock. This is where a lot of people make a very subtle but very expensive error. They optimize for the individual and ignore the household. I have never cared much for that kind of accounting because families do not retire as isolated math problems. They retire as systems. One spouse may have the big earnings history. The other may have spent years raising children, caring for parents, working part-time, or simply earning much less. In that case, the lower earner may be depending on the higher earner, filing to unlock spousal benefits. That matters. A spouse generally cannot collect a spousal benefit until the worker has filed for retirement benefits. And a spousal benefit can be worth up to 50% of the worker's full retirement age amount if claimed under the right conditions. Now think carefully about what delay means in the real world. If a high earner at 62 says, I am going to wait until 70 because that gives me the biggest personal check, that sounds rational in isolation. But if the spouse sitting next to that person is also waiting 8 more years for any meaningful spousal income, the household may be giving up a river of cash flow while congratulating itself for being disciplined. That is not discipline. That is partial math pretending to be complete math. I would rather own the full economics of the family than worship the elegance of one person's delayed benefit. If the higher earner filing at 62 unlocks years of spousal income for the household, then the correct comparison is not one small check versus one bigger check. The correct comparison is total family cash received across both lives. That is a completely different calculation. I call it the household unlock, because the day one person files, another stream of money may start moving, and once you see it that way, the emotional story changes. You are not just reducing one check, you may be opening two. The second mechanism is the longevity spread. This is where people get uncomfortable, and that is precisely why they avoid facing it. Social Security break. Even analysis is simple enough to understand and emotionally difficult enough to be ignored. If you compare claiming at 62 versus 67, the break-even point is often around age 78. Compare 62 versus 70. And you are usually looking at something around age 80 or 81. Compare 67 versus 70. And the break-even tends to land around 82. Those numbers are not prophecy. They are reference points. They mean that if you claim early and die before those ages, you may collect more total lifetime dollars than the person who waited. If you live well beyond them, waiting usually wins in total dollars. Now here is the sentence that most people need to hear and almost nobody likes hearing. Average life expectancy is not your life expectancy. People hide behind averages because averages feel safe. But you are not an average. You have a body, a medical file, a family history, habits, strengths, and weaknesses. Your parents may have lived into their 90s, or they may not have. You may be active, strong, and metabolically healthy, or you may be carrying chronic illness, fatigue, lung damage, heart problems, diabetes, mobility issues, or years of wear from physical labor. If your real probability set says you are not likely to live past your late 70s, then delaying for the highest monthly check is not automatically wise. It may be mathematically inferior. People hear that and think it sounds pessimistic. I think it sounds honest. A rational investor does not pay a premium for a stream of future income he probably will not live long enough to fully enjoy. He prices duration risk, he prices uncertainty, he prices reality. That is what the longevity spread is. It is the spread between the romantic story of living forever and the actual probability of how long the benefit will be collected. If your likely timeline is shorter, then claiming at 62 is not giving up. It is pulling forward value while you are still here to use it. And there is another layer people miss. It is not only about how long you live, it is also about the quality of the years in which you live. $1 received at 63, while you can still move well, travel, fix things, see people, and make choices, is not the same dollar as one received at 83. Under very different physical conditions. Money has a time value, life has one too. The third mechanism is the survivor ladder. This is where couples make either very intelligent or very clumsy choices depending on whether they understand how death changes the math. When one spouse dies, the surviving spouse generally ends up with the higher of the two benefits, not both. That means survivor benefit design matters. The household is not just choosing when to claim. It is choosing which check may remain standing when one of two people is gone. That should sober up anyone making casual decisions. Suppose one spouse has a much larger earnings history and the other spouse has the smaller record. Suppose also that one spouse has clear longevity issues. Maybe there is a serious medical condition, maybe the family history is ugly, maybe there is no need to pretend anymore that all outcomes are equally likely in that world. It can be very rational for the lower earning spouse to claim earlier on their own record while both are alive, knowing that if the higher earning spouse dies first, the surviving spouse may later step up into the larger survivor benefit. That is not greed, that is sequence planning. You are using one record now and preserving access to the other later. Instead of worshiping a single best claiming age, you are constructing a ladder of income across two lives and one likely widowhood. Too many people talk about Social Security as if marriage were just a side note. It is not a side note. In retirement, the household balance sheet matters more than the heroic story of one individual. One check comes in, then one day one check disappears, then a larger or smaller survivor check remains. That transition can either preserve dignity or destroy it. A couple that ignores survivor math is not planning retirement. It is postponing the truth. The fourth mechanism is the portfolio shield. This one surprises people because they assume wealthy households should always delay Social Security. They say, if you have a large nest egg, why would you ever claim at 62? You can afford to wait. That sentence sounds smart. It is often shallow, because what those people forget is that retirement is not only an income problem, it is a sequence problem. If you stop working at 62 and choose to delay Social Security until 70, you still have to eat, travel, insure the house, pay the property taxes, fix the roof, and live a human life. That means the bridge has to come from somewhere. Usually that somewhere is the portfolio. And every dollar that leaves the portfolio early is a dollar no longer compounding. Worse, if those withdrawals happen during a bad market, the damage can become permanent. A weak early sequence combined with heavy withdrawals is how sturdy retirement plans become fragile retirement plans. Now reverse the logic. If Social Security starts at 62, even at a reduced level, that income can cover part of the household burn rate. That means fewer shares sold, fewer withdrawals forced in bad years, more capital left in place, more time for the portfolio to recover and grow. That is the portfolio shield. You are not claiming early because you are desperate. You may be claiming early because you want your investments to carry more of the future and less of the present. You are using Social Security to protect asset longevity, not merely to maximize government income. In some cases, the compounding preserved inside a large portfolio can outweigh the increase you would have gotten by delaying benefits. Not always, but often enough that any advisor who dismisses the idea automatically is doing ideology, not analysis. The portfolio is a machine. The Social Security stream is a tool. Good planning asks which tool reduces strain on the machine at the most fragile time. That answer is not always delay. Sometimes it is claim now and let the portfolio breathe. The fifth mechanism is what I call the reinvestment spread. This is a cousin of the portfolio shield, but it is more aggressive, and it only belongs in the hands of people who know exactly what they are doing. Some retirees are not using early Social Security to cover spending. They are using it because they want to invest the payments. That sounds simple until you understand the trade being made. If you delay, the government is effectively giving you an increase that works out to roughly 8% a year beyond full retirement age until age 70. That is an extraordinarily attractive guaranteed increase. There are not many instruments in the world that offer something like that without market risk. So if you choose to claim early and invest the checks, you're saying something very specific. You're saying, I believe I can take these smaller payments, invest them, compound them, and produce an outcome superior to the larger guaranteed payment I would have gotten by waiting. That can be rational for a seasoned investor. But it is not free money, it is a bet. If the person making that bet is disciplined, truly experienced, temperamentally built for volatility, and financially independent enough that the outcome will not break the plan, then it may be a legitimate strategy. If markets cooperate, if the money stays invested, if the person has the stomach to endure drawdowns, the results can be excellent. But if the person is merely optimistic, easily frightened, likely to sell low, or dependent on those dollars for daily life, then the entire strategy becomes a trap disguised as sophistication. This is why I call it the reinvestment spread. You are choosing the spread between a guaranteed higher future payment and a self-directed portfolio result. That spread can enrich you or embarrass you depending on whether you really have an investing edge or just like imagining that you do. I have spent enough years in markets to know the difference matters. The sixth mechanism is the bridge income match. One of the most intelligent uses of early Social Security is not permanent optimization. It is temporary smoothing. Suppose you retire at 62 and know with confidence that another source of guaranteed lifetime income begins later. Maybe a pension starts at 65. Maybe a deferred income annuity starts at 67. Maybe another contractual stream of income is coming and you built it years earlier. In that case, the whole job of Social Security may change. Instead of being the foundation of late life security, It becomes the bridge between the day work stops and the day the next lifetime income source begins. That is a completely different use case. The person in that position is not asking, how do I make Social Security carry the whole house forever? The person is asking, how do I cross the next 3 to 5 years without hitting the portfolio too hard or creating an ugly cash gap? That is where 62 can be smarter. If an early claim smooths the bridge years and then later income sources take over the heavy lifting, the smaller check may have done exactly what it needed to do. It stabilized the transition, it reduced pressure, it kept the plan from becoming lumpy and psychologically difficult. Retirement decisions are often ruined by rough transitions. People can survive lower total lifetime dollars far more easily than they can survive years of anxiety, uneven withdrawals, and the feeling that the bridge to later security is too narrow. A smooth bridge is valuable. Peace is economic value. That is what the bridge income match really is. It is using the Social Security start date to fit the timing of the rest of the income system rather than pretending the government check lives in a vacuum. The seventh mechanism is the necessity floor. There are people who should not claim early, and there are people for whom claiming early is exactly what the system is for. If you plan to work to 65 but your knees are gone, your back is finished, your hands hurt, your sleep is broken, and every shift feels like a negotiation with pain, then the spreadsheet crowd can lecture all day and still miss the point. The point is that your earning engine may be done, or maybe the body is fine, but the labor market has changed. You get laid off at 62. And suddenly the world that loves saying age discrimination is illegal becomes very quiet when it is time to hire you back at decent pay. Resumes go out, calls do not come in, interviews feel colder, offers get smaller, the calendar keeps moving. At that moment, Social Security is not a theory. It is infrastructure. It exists because human working lives do not unfold in clean, straight lines. The necessity floor is the level of guaranteed income below which the household begins to lose stability. If claiming at 62 is what restores that floor, then using it is not failure. It is functionality. I do not romanticize self-denial. A person who has paid payroll taxes for decades and now needs the benefit is not weak for taking it. He is using a system he funded. The only question is whether the need is real and whether alternatives have been honestly examined. Can you still work in another form? Can you reduce spending and bridge with savings? Can you wait a year or two without breaking the household? If the answer is no, then take the money without shame and move forward with clarity. Now, after laying out those 7 mechanisms, I want to do something just as important. I want to tell you when filing at 62 is usually the wrong move. Because the last thing I want is for a sensible exception to turn into a lazy rule. If you are still working and earning substantial income before full retirement age, early filing is often a mess. In 2026, the earnings limit is $24,480. Earn above that while collecting before full retirement age, and Social Security withholds $1 of benefits for every $2 you earn above the limit. Think about what that means. You take a permanent reduction in the benefit by claiming early, and then while you are still earning decent wages, part of the payment gets withheld anyway. That is not a clever hybrid strategy. In most cases, it is confusion. If you are still in a strong earning phase, do not turn on a smaller check simply because you are eligible. Eligibility is not the same as readiness. Another bad case for early filing is when Social Security will be the core foundation of retirement income and you are healthy enough to keep working or delay without strain. If that government check is going to do the heavy lifting for the rest of your life, then every monthly dollar matters more than it does for a household with a pension, a large portfolio, or several streams of income. The gap between roughly $2,800 and something north of $4,000 or even $5,000 a month is not cosmetic. It can be the difference between margin and fragility for decades. And there is one more case where waiting usually deserves very serious respect. If you are healthy, active, and come from a line of people who simply do not die early, then longevity is not a footnote in your plan. It is the central fact. In that case, the higher delayed benefit may become one of the best inflation-protected lifetime assets you can own. People love to talk about investment returns. Few appreciate the value of a larger guaranteed real income stream that lasts as long as you do. So I am not here to sell you a new slogan. I am not replacing always delay with always claim at 62. I am replacing slogans with architecture because that is how serious money should be handled. The truth is that this decision sits inside a much larger operating system. Your taxes matter. Your portfolio withdrawal rate matters. Your spouse, age, and health matter. Survivor benefits matter. Your family history matters. Your pension matters. Your employability matters. Your emotional tolerance for uncertainty matters. And the smartest move is never the move that wins the most applause online. It is the move that fits the full architecture of your life. So let me show you the protocol I would use if I were sitting at the table with you. First, I would pull the actual benefit estimates at 62, at full retirement age, and at 70. No guessing, no vague impressions, real numbers. Second, I would lay your household on the table, not just you, married or single, higher earner or lower earner, any dependents, any survivor concerns, any major health asymmetry between spouses. Third, I would evaluate whether Social Security is a foundation asset, a bridge asset, a portfolio shield, or a necessity floor. Most people never do this. They treat every claim the same. That is sloppy. The benefit plays a different role in different lives. Fourth, I would force honesty about longevity. Not fantasy, not motivational language, not denial, honest probabilities. A retirement income plan built on a fake life expectancy is like a bridge built on bad soil. Fifth, I would compare the guaranteed increase from weighting against the specific use of early dollars. Are they protecting the portfolio, unlocking spousal income, funding the bridge to a pension, being invested by someone with real skill, or simply relieving a household under pressure? If the early dollars do not have a defined strategic job, then the case for early filing gets weaker. Sixth, I would stress, test the decision against regret. This is where a lot of planning becomes human instead of theoretical. If you claim at 62 and live to 92, will you hate the smaller check every month? If you wait to 70 and die at 74, will your family look back and wish you had taken the money sooner? If one spouse dies early, will the survivor be protected or exposed? If markets collapse in the bridge years, will delaying feel brilliant or reckless? Regret matters because retirement is not lived once in the abstract. It is lived month by month in the body. That is why I care so much about the final framing. Social Security is not about proving how patient you are. It is not about obeying a financial slogan. It is not about winning an argument with a talking head on television. It is about designing income in a way that respects time, mortality, marriage, markets, and human limitations. Sometimes that design says wait, sometimes that design says file at 62. And the people who get this right are not the ones chasing the biggest monthly check. They are the ones who finally understand the difference between maximizing a number and maximizing a life. That is the final choice. You can let the culture shame you into thinking that later is always smarter. Or you can look at your own life closely enough to admit that best is a custom-built answer. If 62 gives your household the unlock it needs, the survivor ladder it needs, the portfolio shield it needs, the bridge it needs, or the floor it needs, then 62 is not the lesser choice. It is the intelligent choice. One day, every retiree ends up staring into the same mirror, not the spreadsheet mirror, the regret mirror. And the question in that mirror is never, did I follow the most popular advice? The question is, did I make the decision that actually fit the life I had? That is the contract. Know your numbers. Know your household. Know what role the benefit is meant to play. And then make your decision with information, not fear, and with strategy, not shame. Because sometimes the smartest move is not waiting for the biggest check. Sometimes the smartest move is knowing exactly why the smaller check creates the bigger result.